Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Battyanbench with me, your girl, Anika Nicole. Miss Felina Nicole is not joining us today, so we have a guest on the bench. I'm so excited to introduce my good friend, Kara Vaval. Hello, Kara.
Hello, hello.
Bonjour, bonjour.
Bonjour, bonjour.
Kara is an attorney. She is an author. She is a motivational speaker, but she is a mother, and she is my friend, so I have asked her to join us on the bench today. Welcome, my friend.
Thank you. So excited to be here, and thank you for your listening. So I'm looking forward to sharing myself, sharing my story, and Battyanbench.
Battyanbench. You know what that is?
No, that was my first question. So I'm happy to be here, but I'm like, what is this? So tell us about that.
So Battyanbench is a phrase in Jamaica, and it's about two people that are as close as Bati. You know what Bati is?
Yes.
Well, my Haitian friend.
Well, we know it in a kind of not at a good term, like bati boy. Okay, sorry. That's the only way I know how to say it.
But bati really means butt, right?
Okay.
So when they used it in that term, you was
okay.
Yeah. So bati means butt and bench, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like you're sitting on the bench right now.
Your butt's on the bench.
Yeah. Can you put your hand between your butt and the bench?
No, that's
and
how
that
close.
Yes.
I got it.
You got it?
Makes sense.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
13 years of friendship.
Yeah.
13 years? Can you believe
You and
it?
I, 13.
You?
Yeah, shit, it's already been 13 years.
Yeah.
The boys were 2.
Don't give people our age.
Okay.
That means we've been friends since we've been in Nappy. You know Nappy?
Children?
Know
Nappy, no?
No.
Damn,
I gotta get you up on this.
You do.
Nappy is like Pampers that we. You know the cloth Pampers that you used to have to fold and then
like
pin on
napkins.
the side.
Got it.
Nappy.
Uh-huh.
So you say when you're picnic, you're nappy, and that's what you used to wear when them have to wash it in the bucket and. They weren't diapers then when disposable.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was nappy. So you had to roll it and pin it on the side, and then when the picnic them pee up themselves, it went everywhere. I'm glad I didn't have to do that. I had diapers. With my kids.
Yes.
Yeah. So this conversation is about relationships. And I wanted to talk about relationships because we have seen each other through so many pivotal moments in our lives, right?
Yeah.
And we've been there for each other. But how did we get there? How did we get there? As I navigate these seasons, and thinking about, relationships and how I've shown up to many relationships, but how did I get there? So I can't help but to think about my childhood and how I grew up.
Of course.
So growing up Jamaican, but you're Haitian, right? So we're Caribbean women. And there is a difference in the Caribbean, the way we were raised in our household. So let's talk a little bit about how you grow up. And I want to hear about your childhood, or I know, and we'll talk a little bit about mine, but then how that really transferred into our relationships as we became adults and women and, 25 and stuff.
Yeah. Still Jake in the fountain. You.
So tell us about how you grew up in Haiti.
So my parents met in New York, actually, and I was born there. But when I was 6 months old, we went back to Haiti, and my father was a ever so present dad. He was a larger than life kind of dude, great father, great husband. I grew up in a very sheltered space. We had a big family. And even though we were living in a space where, in Haiti, back when I was growing up, we had plenty of political unrest and things of that nature, we didn't feel it. We were in a bubble. And so
he was a man.
My dad was a real man. And so that, I'm just giving you that because that really set the tone for a lot of what my life turned out to be like and what relationships turned out to be like for me, because, you know, I had that sheltered, carefree life. But when I was 14 years old, he was murdered in Haiti as well. And so losing him really caused me to lose my sense of self. Because I think, you know, I was 14, and at that age is really when you're really trying to figure out who you are in the world, right? And to lose such a anchor piece, a lot of who I had informed myself to be to myself was through his eyes. And so it was very disorienting. And also because of how I had seen my mother be so dependent on him, and also be so like left kind of not knowing where to even pick up herself. So there was a lot that...
Do you find that in the Caribbean culture, or you can speak on Haiti, but I feel like our cultures are similar, right? So do you find that in the Caribbean culture that like a lot of women, we just naturally depended on the man to like go out and work, and that was their role? There were so many like gender roles. I feel like in my childhood,
I think that that's how I saw it, and that's how, to me, it was supposed to be. I remember till this day, you know, every Saturday morning, my parents had a wedding picture on their, like they had a credenza in their room, and they had this wedding picture, and there was a pile of cash there every, Saturday morning, that my father would have her allowance. So my mom had an allowance, you know, she expected that. She tended to the house. We had the maids. We had, you know, the help that she took care of. She made sure that we were always dressed properly. We would go buy, it was crazy because when I think of it, like, who lives like that? But they would, you know, we would go and get fabric. And my sister and I always dressed the same. So she would just go to the seamstress and she would have these patterns. Horrible. And we had the same outfits to go to church on Sundays and to go to parties. And, you know, my mother kept her house and she kept her kids. So my father could go out and do what he did in the world, which was to be a provider, to, you know, take care of the family, build the house, do all the things that, you know, that men do. And so when I lost him, though, you know, because I saw how lost that left my mom, I became my dad. Like, I was like, oh, that's not.
So do you feel like you have a lot of male masculine energy because of that?
Yeah. And I think that if a woman, especially a girl, goes through something like this, the survival mechanism that kicks in automatically taps into that, because it's that survivor mentality of providing for yourself. Now I have to become a provider. And so I became a provider. And so as I showed up in life, as I showed up in relationships, especially when I started showing up in relationships, I showed up with that masculine,
that big D energy,
right? And so although I wanted the experience that I saw my mom have, I created the complete opposite of that because I didn't make space for someone else to play a masculine role in my life.
Right. So for me, when growing up, I was born to two teenage parents in Jamaica. And, you know, teenagers, what do they know about raising kids? So my grandmother decided that she needed to step in, my dad's mom. So I was raised by my paternal side. So I don't know my maternal side very much. But I think that's very big in the islands and in Jamaica a lot, is that people raised by them grandmother, them raised by them auntie, them raised by them cousin. You know, everybody's mommy, you know, but my mommy.
Your mommy is my mommy too.
Yeah, exactly. I know, she loves you. But mommy is my grandmother, right? And she raised me, and I saw that where my grandfather went to work, great provider, provided, and she would take care of the household. Because I was raised by strong women. The women took care of things in the house. Men, them go out, them work, them bring in the money, and them got to Gal Bush, as my grandfather used to say. You know, Gal Bush?
No.
The strip club girl.
Oh, goodness.
And I'm going to go to the Gal Bush. And that's how I was raised, right? My grandmother just took care of things. My grandfather went out and he was a provider. As long as you come home, nothing is said.
Right.
You come home at night, it's good. But I was raised by my grandparents, and I still knew that my parents were out there. So that affected the way I then later showed up into relationships, right? Like you were raised with this strong father figure that was actually your father. My grandfather's a strong father figure, but it didn't always feel the same.
Right.
Because he wasn't my dad. Mm-hmm. So, girl, I had daddy issues.
But you know what? I also did too. Yeah. Even though I had an amazing father who was present, I didn't know it back then, but therapy will reveal to you later on. You know, my 14-year-old little girl mind did process the loss as abandonment. And I was abandoned in my little girl mind by the first man I ever loved. He was the love of my life.
Even though it wasn't his fault.
It wasn't his fault.
That's how you process.
But I was a daddy's girl. Yeah. And he left me.
Yeah.
You know? And so that was another thing as well. As I engaged in relationships, I went to either someone who was emotionally unavailable or someone that I wasn't too afraid to lose. So that if I did, that part.
Will you tell us some names?
Yeah. We're not doing that. They're gonna remain anonymous.
Ooh, I think they know who they are.
But it was really not that I didn't have connection or anything like that. I did, but I didn't put myself out there to actually have the person that I really, if I lost, I couldn't recover from. Right? Because I had done that. I had already known that the depth of that pain. Mm-hmm. And I went with options where I could still control the emotional outcome of a loss of that, if that makes sense. And also it was just really a fertile ground for me being able to just do me without getting lost in a relationship. So I had relationships. I even had a marriage that lasted 13 years, but it wasn't me putting myself 100% out there emotionally because of partly I was emotionally unavailable for that. And so I think that. And, I'm sure your audience, the women in your audience can relate because we're so similar, even though we may have different backgrounds and different stories as to how we got here. The common thread is, when you face certain feelings, whether it be, abandonment, not feeling worthy, not feeling, that your wants or needs are safe in someone, whatever that may be.
Oh, trust.
So then, what happens is you choose based on that. And it's usually it's a choice made out of fear. Yeah. And it's a choice made out of, this illusion of you keeping yourself safe. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it exposes you to another flip side, which is being lesser of, yourself, or even experiencing lesser than what you could experience if the vulnerability part was actually available.
Over this course of I would say a year, in this season that I call it, I've been questioning a lot about that, about me and my choices and what led me here. And going through therapy, yes, Jamaican people can go to therapy.
Therapy is
don't judge.
Very important.
Until you try it. Just wait. And so trying to unpack, because that's a popular word.
Right.
Let me unpack this. It goes back to my roots and growing up and what I saw, what I didn't see, what I, experienced even just as a young girl growing up in culture.
Right.
And I feel like there's so many things we learn So many things we see, so many things we can't unsee.
Right.
Growing up, and that shapes the romantic relationships in our lives in the future. And that's really what I really want to touch on, but I know it starts from somewhere, right? The core. And I just remember too, growing up hearing in the music and stuff about like infidelity. And how it was just so acceptable. Or like, as long as you like brush it off, or you fight your mieti. You know what a mieti is?
Your mate?
Mieti?
No.
The mieti, not the miet.
Okay, well.
She's the unmiet. The mieti is a side chick.
No, we ain't fighting no side chick.
But
We don't
I
do
feel
that.
like you heard that a lot. So it's like, if you're in a relationship, you fight for your man, whatever. Anyway, like I said, things that shaped us, that we learned and was cultural, and that we took on into relationships in our adulthood.
Right.
So for me, my daddy issues were like, I want a man to just like give me the attention that I didn't get.
Right.
You know, your dad gave you a lot of attention because he was so present. But for me, I didn't get that attention. So I feel like that's what I was seeking as a young adult, and an even younger adult now. Just saying. And so that shaped a lot of who I chose.
Right.
And for you,
So for me, okay, so I'm going to just back up a little bit, because obviously now hindsight is 2020, right? So as I've done a lot of work on myself, because I had to go back and study me. Like, why do I do the things that I do? Why do I function this way? Why do I choose things that ultimately are not the best for me? Like, why do we do that? You know, and I had to look at me, because, you know, I realized that I had patterns. And so, you know, one of the things that I think I was already in my 30s, really, when I found out that, you know, we all have something called our subconscious mind, right? And it records all the things that we've been exposed to. And so, you know, at the end of the day, we're like machines. You know, most of the things that we do are very unconscious. And it's, again, that's why the patterns can be seen. It's because you're literally reacting to things based on a program that you're running. So this guy kind of like a knee-jerk reaction. Trigger. Exactly. And so it wasn't until I was able to really look at that I could make sense of all the things, right? All of the, not just relationships romantically, but, you know, even friendships, certain things, you know, I've tolerated, certain ways that I showed up. And so once I was able to see all of that, you know, it was like, you know, a bird's eye view on me. And then I was then able to say, okay, this way of being is no longer serving me. And I don't want to be that. I don't want to show up like that again. I know I'm showing up like this, and I know I've been showing up like this, but
so
this is not.
let's be more specific then. Let's reel it in.
Yeah.
If you want to have this conversation.
Right.
And we don't have to say specifically what relationship, but like, think of a relationship in your head, right?
Too easy.
And then tell me, one, how you showed up. Two, what you learned from it. And three, what would you tell little girl Kara about what you experienced in that?
Yeah. So I showed up, and I don't have a problem talking about it, in my marriage. I showed up as, I got it, Kara. I got everything. I got it. And so, but then, you know, that is that big D energy, right? Of a provider. And in gotting everything, I didn't get gotten.
You didn't get gotten, or did you get gotten?
You already see what I'm saying? Okay. So with that, and when that happened, then I got mad. I got big mad, but it was like, did I ever even create space to get gotten?
Did you have the conversations?
I had the conversations, but what happens is, you know, when you show up a certain way for a long time, you train people. You train people on how to treat you. You train people on how to be with you and how to interact with you. And then all of a sudden, now you want something different. Now you want somebody to change overnight. Not so fair. Now, if I had to go back and have a conversation with little Kara, it would have been, lean into your feminine a little bit more. Ask for help. Ask for the things that you want instead of holding it inside all the way to bitterness. Because at the end of the day, you know, it was my responsibility. You know how they say in the Bible, ask and you shall receive? Okay.
And they also be careful what you ask for.
Exactly. So all of those things, I don't know. But all of those things are, you know, again, when you look at yourself, you get an opportunity to take responsibility for a lot of your own shit. You know, we create our
already, like we didn't even hit the surface.
I mean, we're either doing this or we're not, right?
Okay, I'm gonna bill each one of you $199 for this therapy session. You're welcome.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I was tired of being disempowered. I was tired of being...
Yes, but within that, did you have those hard conversations?
1,000%.
Did he listen?
But that's the thing. Again, at some point, even in his listening was skewed and his listening was limited by the pattern and by the training also that I take responsibility for bringing into the relationship.
Why do you take responsibility for it?
I take responsibility for it because, you know, that's how I show up. I'm not ever going to be in my life as a victim. I will never be in my life as a pointing the finger kind of person. And if the person wants to take responsibility for their part and act differently and choose differently, that's a choice, right? Mm-hmm. But if they don't, then myself, I know, okay, I see how I contributed to this, and I also see that this is no longer for me, right? And if I don't see change behavior, which I've given the opportunity for, then I'm going to go ahead and excuse myself, and I'm not going to, you know, I'm not going to make you do anything. If there's one thing I came to understand, let me just finish this one thought. One thing I did come to understand is you can't change people who don't want to change. Like, someone has to want to change for themselves. And when people show you who they are, believe them the first time. And I will tell you that, you know, many times we choose somebody who is in vibrational match to where we are. And if your vibrational, you know, continence changes, that person remain the same. It's just, that's all that happened.
When does grace enter that realm? You know, like, we show up for a relationship. We ask for people to show up in ways that we never really had conversations with them to say, hey, I need you to show up this way.
Right.
We just expected them to show up. And when they don't, do we give them that grace to really show up, you know, in time? Will they, or will they never get to that point? Or do you meet them halfway? You know, for me, I think I put up with so much. I kept putting up and putting up and putting up, thinking that everything will just kind of like work itself out. And, you know, it wasn't about pointing fingers, but yeah, I think I was pointing fingers because I'm like, you're not doing what I want you to do. Why is that? You know, why is that? But we entered this relationship. I thought we were on the same page. And when it doesn't
and you might have been, and you might have been, but people change, and people's priorities change. And
but you have to have that conversation and say, "Look, I changed."
Right.
You know, like, why? That's, I think, for me is hard when people don't have that conversation about this needs to be talked about.
Yeah, and again, you know, it's this idea of you are dictating how somebody is supposed to act, like, or show up, because that's how you would act or show up.
Yeah.
Everybody's a sovereign being, and they get to choose how they show up in the world. And you have absolutely no jurisdiction over how somebody shows up. You're only, and that's what you asked me, why am I taking so much responsibility? Yeah. I'm taking so much responsibility because that's the only thing I can do. That's the only thing I have control. That's the only thing I have control over is me. I can't control how someone acts. I can't control how they process even the conversation that you're saying we should have. I had the conversations, and they landed into deaf ears. So what am I supposed to do about that? You know, it's like, you can't change those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But you also have to realize that you brought this into your experience
No, I won't
because
accept that.
no. I'm not giving you your specifics.
No, I'm joking.
I'm just saying, especially
take
in
on his
my
trauma.
world, I had to see, because again, all my power was tied into me seeing that. My power was tied into, so when it went from this is happening to me to this is happening for me, there was a game changer. It was a shift because it was like, okay, this is an opportunity for me to learn something about myself because at some point this was okay.
Okay.
And now it's not. And why was it okay? And why did I show up in a way where this is where I find myself today? And that was the entire access into my abandonment issues, into not wanting to feel like what I saw in my mom's eyes that night.
What did
when
you see?
She was completely disoriented. She was 40 years old. My dad was 42 and I'm 42 now. So can you imagine, right?
Tell people that.
Oh, me, I don't have a problem. I embrace it. But
She meant to say 25.
I embrace it. But he was the entire center of her world. And in losing him, now she's left with 3 kids. My sister was 17, I was 14, and my little brother was 5. And literally, I could tell that she did not know her right from her left. And it was scary because she was the only parent I had left. And I was like, oh, holy shit. Like,
I can't depend on you.
Right. And guess what? For a very long time, the story I was always running is I don't even have a wall to lay my back up against. And it was like that, in my marriage. And then I was like, okay, I don't want to say that shit anymore. I don't want to be the person.
You took your power and you decided, I'm going to get up. I'm going to go to school. I'm going to make a life for myself. You got married, you had kids, and you created this whole life on your strength, right? Because you made that choice.
I did. And I made that choice because I took responsibility for my life. And I understand that no one is coming to save me. No one's coming to save you, right? And so if that's the case, right? And if that's the case, right? The sooner I can save myself, the better for me.
Okay.
But
did that create space for your partner? If you took up all that space, like I'm going to save me but did you give him space to try to save you?
I did, but it was just not available. And at some point, you have to really see what you're in, and that was fine, And so now I'm in a different relationship where I'm able to navigate differently, and I'm able to lean into my feminine, and it's not easy.
So what are you laying down, or I don't even want to say compromise, right? But what are you changing now to embrace
I don't got it.
You don't got it?
I don't got it.
What I mean?
I don't got it. That means that, where I can see him being helpful or whatnot, where I don't necessarily need him, but I want him there.
Wanting versus needing.
Yes. So because really I need,
feel the same?
I need for nothing.
That's the same way. But in your previous relationship, what was the dynamic?
It was, I got it. I got everything. I would even ask, and if there wasn't an immediate response, it's like, no, fuck it, I got it. Because nobody could do it like me. And so, and that's...
Control issues?
Fuck yeah. I had a lot of control issues. I mean, like a lot.
Yeah.
And all of that with pain, with time, with healing, and with surrender, and not needing to prove anything anymore. Because there was, I think, a part of me that was trying to prove that I was... to everybody, to the world, that, there was definitely something about, even though I went through what I went through, I still did all of that. There was that energy behind a lot
Maybe
of
proving to the little Kara.
probably that, we are right. We good. We all right. I got you, girl. Yeah. And so doing, I listen, this way of being served me a lot. A lot of what I've built, my career, the law firm, the coaching business, the book, the writing, the search, even the healing and the lessons from that I get to share with my community and the women that I help. Like all of this has served me. So it's been good, but it's been a painful journey.
Oh my God. Change is painful. And I think sometimes people don't really want to accept that or acknowledge that. Like, you have to go through that refining period. You have to go and be that clay and allow yourself to be that clay, to be remolded. You have to be
That's how diamonds are made.
Girl, pressure.
Okay.
Pressure bust pipe.
Right?
You have to allow yourself for that change. And it hurts. And it's painful. And it's growth. And it does not feel good. But it is for a moment.
Growth is seeing your past and acknowledging it, giving it its flowers, right? And not necessarily looking down on it, but also evaluating whether that's what you want to take into the future and what you want to take into the future. I think that's growth. Yeah.
So with our past, I feel like with the gender roles, with things of we were taught by our parents or people that raised us, right? It's like you expect like the guy to take out the trash, the woman to wash up the plates and cook the dinner and all of that. And how that now transitions into 2025,
right,
showing up in relationships and saying, I expect this, and putting everyone in a box.
Right.
But never really having that conversation, because if you come from someone that doesn't have a Caribbean background, right? How do they know that boys don't clean bathrooms? You know what? I'm salty about that one too, though. I'm not gonna lie. Growing up, they were like, "Mandem no clean up the bathroom." I was like, "What? What do you mean?" The boys in the house did not clean up the bathrooms, but they made the biggest mess.
Right.
And I'm like, why don't they have to clean the bathroom?
I think you still need some therapy on that issue.
Okay. I'll be calling you today.
Yeah, this is definitely
I'm going off
touchy
topic.
one for you.
I'm going off topic. But just knowing those roles and then taking them into relationships, which now I think translates into like love languages. Right. What is your love language? Is it to be taken care of? Is it like to affirmations?
Right.
What is your love language?
So first, let me back up real quick before diving into that, because I just want to touch on something you said about these roles and how we get into these relationships. So when I was 31, so that was like however many years ago, I went to the Landmark Forum. So the Landmark Forum is a platform that really the premise of the platform, the premise of the awareness mainly is that, humans are meaning-making machines. There's what happened, and then there's the story you attach to it, right? Mm-hmm. Just be with me. And so what the story you attach to it is not necessarily the truth. It's just it's just the layer that you put in, and then you run with that.
I tell myself,
right? And then you run with that, and then you proclaim that to be the truth. But it's really just your truth, right? You just made something mean something based on your upbringing, your way of thinking, and what you think is right, what you think is wrong. And when my son was 10, I brought him to the Landmark Forum as well, because I found that he was getting into tiffs with a lot of people, and he kept saying, it was them. And I was like, but you're the common denominator. So I think you need to see you. Ooh, and so,
but that's a real Caribbean mom for you, though. She'll tell you the truth.
Right. Yeah. And so I took him, and the way that they had the kids see it is they had them wear different lenses and different colored lenses, showing them that different people, if you have blue lenses or green lenses or red lenses, you're experiencing the world very differently. Someone can see the same exact thing and interpret what happened And of course, as a lawyer and witnesses, you never, witness saw something, but did they really see it, right? What did they see?
Yeah.
Anyways, all of that to come back to the fact that when you get into relationships, what husband means to you doesn't necessarily mean the same thing to your husband.
Or the matey.
Right? So what your definition of a wife, what the definition of a girlfriend, what a definition of a partner, what that definition means to you is not necessarily what that means to this person.
That's
even
why
with
people should get premarital counseling. 1,000%.
And these are the conversations that, these are the freaking conversations that need to happen before you say I do. Yes. Right? It's what does this stuff mean to you? What does family mean to you? Yeah. Right? And literally, what's the definition? Because
what does success mean to you?
What does success means to you? Because honestly, I'll tell you, I think if I had those conversations with my ex, probably we would have discovered that we're just not going in the same direction, right? Yeah. And so that's one of the reasons why, in my opinion, being where I am in my life, being in a relationship and adding the title to it, it's loaded. The title is loaded with definitions that we don't understand for one another. And so when I say I need a partner, right? And I've had that conversation. I want a partner. What partner means?
What does that mean to you?
So a partner for me is not only a companion in life, but someone who's got my back, because I'm going to have your back, because that's how I understand partnership to be. Partnership means that we are growing something together, whether it be a family, we are growing something together that because of both of our energies, we're going to end up birthing something. So where did you
think the breakdown of that definition was for you? Because when you say partnership, when you say partner and you define it, that to me sounds...
The breakdown is because partnership to me was from the lens of a girl who grew up in a Caribbean island, okay, where I saw a man be a provider, my ex-husband never saw the pile of cash that I saw those Saturday mornings. He doesn't know that that's part of it for me. He doesn't know that I saw my father create a business that my mother could go work in, so that she would be able to actually contribute to the family.
So what drew you to him then? What drew
you to him?
Safety. What was safe about it?
Because he was easygoing. I had the space to do.
Or was he silent enough for you?
That too. That too, being the truth, right? And so it was a great companion in the sense of I had the company, but I took a lot of space. And he was perfect for that time in my life because I took a lot of space. If he occupied space as well, then there wouldn't be enough space for me.
And so do you think he is taking a deep breath? No, he can breathe. He has space for himself.
Probably he's like, damn, good riddance, bitch.
Well, edit.
Okay, I'm just, listen.
But listen, people come into your life for what?
A reason, a season, or a lifetime. And I always take it to the next level. If you're trying to make a season or a reason person last a lifetime, you are in for some pain. Some people, listen, and that is where we need to really understand the truth of that, okay? When a seasonal person's time is up.
That's a problem, though. It's hard to recognize sometimes when that season is up.
Right, but the life is informing you. The reason why it's so difficult for you to understand that is because you don't want it to be up.
Yeah, because sometimes some of us are just a little stubborn.
I understand that, but to your detriment.
I'm a stubborn person.
Oh, I know. I could have told you that.
I'm a stubborn person, but also, it's hard sometimes.
All of it is hard. We just said that change is hard.
Yes,
transitions are hard. sitting with the truth that holy shit,
hard.
things are no longer what I thought.
With the truth.
Listen, and you know what the worst part is? I'm going to tell you what the worst part is. And that's the part that people don't talk about enough. When a relationship is ending or a relationship is transitioning, there is a death. There's a death of what could have been or what you thought was going to be that happens. Whether it's the family that you're no longer going to have, whether it's, what you wanted for the kids that they're no longer going to experience. And also there's a death of
photos.
But there's also a death of who you thought you were going to be. So you have to mourn a whole death of yourself.
But you know what I don't like is when people put an expiration on somebody's mourning. You don't get to tell someone how long they should mourn. If they need a year, if they need a decade, as long as they're working towards something that is better for them, if they need to mourn, it is no one's business to say,
no, that's for sure.
Girl, it's been a year, get over it.
No, that's for sure.
I don't like that.
Yeah.
I really don't like
Everybody processes differently. But also, I'm on the flip, because my book, 28,000 Days Make Yours Count, you're on borrowed time. You have 28,000 days that you're doing this little human dance, right? It's about 75 years is the average lifespan of a human being. How much time are you really gonna, sit on your soapbox before you gotta pick yourself up by your hair?
My aunt told me one day, she was like, listen, you cry one day over a man, one day. Wipe your tears, get up and move on. That's what she told me. And I said, you know what? You're right.
Yeah.
Sometimes it might take you 2 days, but
it's not a matter of putting an expiration date. And it's not just over a man. It's over any ending, whether it be a business you have to close or a friendship that has run its course. Endings are not easy. And again, there's a grieving. These are all things that they're losses. Yeah. We only talk about the loss and the death situation. And now you can grieve. But there's grieving of so many sorts.
It's a roller coaster.
Correct. Because life be lifing, right? Yeah. And things are changing. But at the end of the day, for me, I have a perspective, as I said earlier, that has served me. And it is that life is happening for me and not to me. Life is informing me of my next. And as we spoke earlier, a lot of what you've birthed in the last year has been because of the space that the season that you're in your life has opened up. And you're tapping into a part of you, a side of you that you would have otherwise never tapped into because you would have been, in
There's a sense of freedom that I'm experiencing right now that I don't think I would have had a year and a half ago.
1,000%.
And now I'm going into thinking about having my daughter, right? We both have daughters the same age. That's another podcast episode about
how that happened.
And why our daughters are only a week apart. Stay tuned.
Fun times.
Being something for my daughter and then being something for the generation that's coming up after us, right? I have cousins, I have nieces, and they're younger, and I want to send them something. I want to give them something about my experience that can help them. I don't know if they'll listen. I don't know if they'll follow, but I want whatever I've gone through to help someone else to see whether it is I need to make a change or whether it is there is hope or it's going to get better. But relationships happen. Some are beautiful and they blossom and they last forever, but some don't. And it's hard and it's crushing. And I want to show the younger girls and the younger generation about resilience and how that you need to stand up and depend on yourself as a person. Know you so you can love you and give space to love others. Yeah. And if others choose not to love you, it does not mean that you're not lovable.
Right. And I think that it's so perfect how you brought us here because in talking about relationships, the absolute most important relationship you will ever have is your relationship with yourself. Yeah. Right? Yeah. It's your relationship with yourself. Because that's who you've been riding with the whole time.
It's who I'm gonna die with too.
Right? Exactly. and yet, It's not until we face pains that are intolerable from outside of us that we turn inward to go have that conversation with ourselves, with the little girl, the many little girls that are trapped and, frozen in time from the traumas and the different things that happen and that we never processed. It's not until that time. And you remember I said the word this morning, it's an opportunity to go back, and you can't have that opportunity but for the falling apart of relationships outside of you, so that you now realize, okay, I can't depend on these relationships to feed me. I need to have a relationship that is so full with myself that not only do I get from me what I need, but also when I'm in something, I'm in a relationship, I'm in an interaction, connection with someone, there is a standard that you can keep because you are honoring her, because you love and respect her so much.
The rule that you're going to say to younger girls and even your own daughter, what would that rule be about how she should show up into a relationship?
I don't think she has any business sharing herself until she knows who that is, right? And I don't think she has any business making any commitments until she really knows. I say you need to know what you're bringing to the marketplace, because you don't even know what to charge until you know who thy be, right? Yeah. And so you've gotta have that. And so those are the conversations that I'm having with her is, be full of yourself. Be full of yourself, not in a cocky way, but in a way of, I know who I am. I know my value. I know how I love. One of the things that I love about me is how fully I love. And I realize how valuable that is, because not everybody has that. I love the fact that I can come in and pour into people freely, because I don't have a holdback. And there's people that they're not like that. And that's something that I can admire. And so really look at you, do an inventory. I call it an asset inventory of what you bring to the table, so that when you are engaging, whether it be in friendship, whether it be in business, whatever, you can gauge who really is worth or worthy even of your company, of your conversations, of your love, of your companionship, of what you bring. And until you understand that, you have no business being in the marketplace, because you're going to undercharge and you're going to settle. And if somebody comes and breadcrumbs the shit out of you, you won't even be able to, right? Because there's too many pockets of you that is needing feeding that you should have been tending to.
So for me, it's like with my daughter, I do a lot of pouring into her, pouring in affirmations, pouring in love, hugs every morning as soon as she wakes up. Let's morning huggy, I love you. There's always a note in her lunchbox telling her how wonderful she is, how amazing she is, that she needs to rely on God, pray. There's always something, because as a little girl, I don't feel like things were poured into me. So for me, I am pouring into my daughter these positive things, and I want her to then pour into the world.
Right.
Pour into the world goodness, pour into the world kindness, pour into the world joy. All the fruitage of the Spirit I want in her, and that's what I want for all the girls.
Yeah.
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 Oh my gosh, this conversation can go on forever.
Oh yeah, we could.
And I thank you for being on the bench with me today.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my
what a
gosh,
treat,
my friend. Now you know what batyanbench
I
means.
understand that my bati on the bench.
Girl.
Yes, and you and I are batyanbench.
We
Okay. Nothing can slip in between. Yeah, and listen, thank you not only for having me here, but thank you for your friendship.
Oh my gosh.
You're a down ass chick. Oh, come on. Listen, she got the wrong guess if she was thinking the shit was going to be filtered. No, but really, you are an incredible woman. You're an incredible mom. Love having you as my friend. Oh. And so I'm happy that we were able to do this dance, and congratulations on an amazing platform.
Thank you, my love. Thank you, my friend.
Yay! We did that, and that's a wrap.
Well, it was a great podcast. Thank you for joining us on The Bench. We'll see you next time.